And welcome to the Two Medics podcast. Just a quick shout out to our sponsors, mah.uk.com for medical accountancy needs, and also to Lifeline Healthcare Group.co.uk for the best locum rates.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Two Medics podcast. My name's Bethan John. I'm a current GP trainee, ex-neurosurgery trainee working in Liverpool, and with me today is...
Hello everyone, I am Neena. I am a GP with a special interest in urgent care. God, that sounded really like a radio host presenter.
You've been practicing your introduction.
Oh, obviously I have, can you tell?
But yeah, another takeover episode from ourselves, so I hope that's okay. I never quite know how they go down.
Choice.
No, yeah. This is it.
Oh, so how have you been, man? How are things going?
Yeah, good. I rotated that first week of August, like most other trainees.
What are you doing now? What specialty?
I'm doing Jerry's. That feels like a swear word, isn't it? After all those
you can't say that. Care of the mature person.
Where I'm working at the moment is actually called DMOPS, Department of Medicine for the Older Person, which I quite like. But Jerry's is Jerry's, isn't it? But no, honestly, I am loving it. I am absolutely loving it, yeah.
You've got a brilliant supervisor, haven't you?
Yeah, no, I have. I've got an amazing supervisor, really good support. I feel like part of a team. And it's just so refreshing. And I think I said to my supervisor the other day, like in the 10 years that I've been qualified as a doctor, it's the first time that I've come to work and like not been scared or anxious to come to work. And she said that was really sad. And I thought, oh my God, it is. Honestly, I can't like that. That's just the truth. So yeah, I'm very lucky. I feel like I'm very lucky where I'm working at the moment, and it's the hospital where I actually did my F1, F2 all those years ago.
So it's
been quite nice going back, and a lot of things have changed, but I've seen quite a lot of familiar faces and things, which is nice.
This should be the norm. You shouldn't have to. No one should have to go into work. Like, oh, I'm so lucky. Sad? I don't go to work and feel scared. Like, I'm so lucky.
Yeah,
like, that's not lucky.
I didn't wake up shitting myself this morning. It's amazing. I know. It feels quite pathetic, but I don't know. I'm just having I don't know what it is. Well, there's certain things. I feel like part of a team, which I haven't for a long time, and in GP I felt quite isolated.
Yeah.
And it's kind of what I envisioned medicine to be. So I thought I would get that from GP, this whole holistic kind of care of the whole person. But I didn't. Obviously, we all know how it is. You know how it is. It's just very much like quick fire, feeling like you're a community SHO sometimes, just doing jobs for other people. Whereas where I'm working in Jerry's, it's like an acute frailty unit. And it just, I know it's early days, but I feel like I'm finally getting that holistic experience, and you're looking at the whole person, and there are medical decisions to be made, but it's also the social stuff, you're chatting, and I don't know, it's what I envisioned the kind of doctor that I would want to be. So I'm happy.
You're not changing specialties again. We need you in general practice.
I'm actually thinking about it.
Yeah. Are you?
Oh, yeah. You heard it here first. No, I'm only joking. No, but I am seriously.
What's your next intro going to be?
Oh God, I am not going to do another training program. There is no way on this earth that I could do IMT. Like, I don't know. I just can't be a trainee forever.
But the one thing about GP is you can specialise in lots of different things. So you can go into elderly and frailty if that's one of your interests.
Yeah. So whether I make it to CCT, we'll see. But I don't know. My eyes have been open to something that I never considered before. And it's hard, isn't it? Because you never know what you want to do, I guess, until you experience these things.
Yeah. But how much of it is because you're supported and have good supervisors as well? So I think your environment with your team makes a massive difference.
But I think that's how a lot of people end up in specialties, though, isn't it? Like, you're supported by some people. It's how I bloody fell into neurosurgery. I was captured by some registrars who just kind of took me under their wing and took me to theatre. And it does sometimes work like that, doesn't it? But lots to think about, I think. But how are you anyway? How have you been?
Yeah, good. I just had my sister's wedding.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it was amazing. No, it was really nice because I think it's our first proper big family meet up and celebration since the pandemic. And I mean, you know how hard the pandemic's been for us as a family. We've had some really sad losses in our family the last couple of years. Yeah. So being able to meet up for something so happy. We were just so grateful to be together. And not just the wedding day, like a couple of days before, we had loads of family that came down. I had family fly from Kenya who I hadn't seen in 12 years.
Wow.
And it was just fun. Like, we had water gun fights beforehand, musical chairs, pizza parties. So we had like 2 days beforehand of just bonding and fun.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Have you seen the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding?
Oh, I love that. I think we've spoken about this movie before, haven't we?
That's
love
my
that film.
family, my big fat Punjabi wedding. Honestly, like, if you just times the number of people by 5, you get my family. So yeah, that's what it was.
That sounds so good. I'm glad you had such a good time, because weddings can be somewhat stressful, can't they?
It was still stressful.
In the lead up,
I'm still knackered. I feel like I need a holiday. I should have gone on the honeymoon with my sister to recover.
Can you imagine?
Hello. Oh, we're all here. Come on, family.
Oh my God, your poor sister.
She would have had a choice.
Bless her. But yeah, we're a couple of weeks into August now, so I guess those trainees have changed over, and I guess the new FY ones have started, and they're a couple of weeks into their first post, which we know is obviously incredibly difficult, but I hope that people are coping, that it's going okay on the whole, and people feel like that they have support and people to turn to. And I know Imran and Tharusha always kind of mention, don't they, that if you're not okay, then please ask for help. And I think we always just want to reiterate that message. And, there's amazing kind of services out there like practitioner health and the BMA counselling and things. So it's always worth kind of thinking about and mentioning. But did you feel prepared after med school for working as a doctor, Neena?
So this is a tweet by Nimra, and their Twitter handle is @Nimspov. And she stated, med school does not prepare you for the NHS at all. Like, what was I even doing for the last 6 years? No, I didn't think med school prepared me for NHS whatsoever. I felt like we learned about, anatomy, physiology, conditions, different specialties. But actually, when I started my job, I kind of turned up on the ward and completely clueless. Like, I didn't really know what was expected of me, what my role was going to be. And even, I think, beyond that, as I feel like medical school is almost like an extension of school. You're like mollycoddled, quite
to some extent. Yeah, definitely.
To some extent. And then you start as an employee, and then you have all these issues with, pay and contracts. And that was the biggest minefield for me. I didn't have a clue what were my rights or not. But maybe that was just me being quite naive and clueless myself.
I think it's fair. I think because there's one aspect of kind of being a doctor, and personally I didn't even feel prepared for that, because I do think that you are just taught kind of pathology, and I never felt like, when I started work as a doctor, I feel like I'd never actually put that into real life and how it actually presents. Like, I knew facts, but, well, not that many facts, but I knew some facts. And then it was very different to actually doing it in a ward environment. And I don't think I'd ever, I didn't know to do a ward round every day, and that sometimes I'd had to do that by myself. And like you say, the whole kind of things with payroll, GMC registration. I didn't know I'd be paying for GMC registration and indemnity insurance every year, all those things. And I think if we found it hard and we trained in the UK, imagine how much more difficult it would be for IMG doctors. Like, it's just insane. But I don't really know what the answer is, because I think this kind of stuff crops up and people say, oh, well, if you'd made the most out of your placements and turned up and stuff, then you'd be prepared. And I think, there is an element of that. And sometimes I think, I could have been more involved in placements.
I definitely could have been more involved. No, I mean, were you offered a shadowing week? I don't think we had one. I think that would have been really helpful. Like, instead of like one of the months in medical school, or when you start having like a paid month of shadowing just from the team before, just so you know what the hell you're doing.
Yeah, and I think some medical schools do it differently. So when I trained in Cardiff, our finals were, at that time, I don't know what it is now, but they were at the end of the whole thing. So all the placements were like in specific like blocks of specialties. But where I'm working now, so obviously Liverpool Medical School is the local one, I think their finals like kind of come at the end of 4th year. And then they have 5th year, which is more, it feels like a bit more of like an apprenticeship. I think that's quite a good way of doing things. So it's like learning how to be a doctor rather than just learning how to pass exams still. So I think it totally depends where you go, and yes, it is an element of engagement and stuff, but Sometimes
Also, I mean, I was like you, I had my finals at the very end. And at that point, you're just focusing on passing your exams. You know, you need that time to just work and, like I said, like focus on passing. And I quite like actually having your finals end of fourth year and then having a year of like an apprenticeship.
Definitely see like how that would work. But do you remember like your first couple of on-calls as an FY1 and stuff?
I remember my first flipping day. So my first, I won't say where I worked because it's obviously this is appalling, but my first 10 days as an FY1. So my first day, it was just me and an F2. The reg and the consultant, one was on annual leave, one was on study leave. So we turned up on the ward, not even knowing who, and we only found out like a few days before which team we were going to be under and which consultant we were going to be under. Turned out like, oh, they're not here. Like we found out that morning, and then luckily the F2 kind of knew how to do a ward round because I didn't have a clue. And then that I turned up the next day, second day, and found out he'd quit and he just left. So then I was
good for him.
Good for him. I was alone. I'm like, what do I do? So I'm going around doing this ward round completely by myself for that first week, not knowing if I'm doing the right thing or not. And then I remember about 5 days into it, I had a patient who suddenly deteriorated, like completely deteriorated. I didn't know who to call. I didn't have any like senior person on my team that I could escalate to. So I just pulled this random doctor on my ward. He was like a senior SHO. I said, can you help me? My patient's really unwell. And then he goes, oh, but that patient's not on my team. I'm like, there is no one on my team. I am the only person. I've been a doctor for 3 days. And then I just pulled out the drama card. I just went, if you don't help me right now, this patient will die. I am that bad a doctor. I am that bad. Like if this patient is left with me by myself. Aww. So then he goes, okay, fine, drama queen. And so then he came and helped me. And then, the peri-arrest team came and it was really...
Bloody hell. Yeah, I think my experience wasn't that dissimilar. So I started on respiratory and again, it wasn't really allocated a team. And I remember I was turning up and not finding where I needed to be. And I just cried and cried for days because, like you, I think I turned up and eventually found out I was on this like 40 bedded acute ward. And it was just me and another F1 and there was no SHOs, no registrars. I think there was just rota gaps everywhere. And we were coming in at like 8 o'clock in the morning and leaving at 9 o'clock at night because we just didn't have a clue what we were doing. There were some consultant ward rounds, but they were not every day. We didn't know who to escalate to. I remember like the two of us going to try and get a coffee on one of our first few days. And as soon as we left the ward, put a medical emergency team call out. And I just remember crying and crying and wanting to quit. And like looking back now, I have serious concerns about like my well-being at that time. And I kind of hold a lot of resentment that like none of that was picked up. And I remember trying to complain to people. And I think I ended up speaking to the foundation program director at the time and he wasn't really helpful. And he was, oh, are you threatening to whistleblow? And I didn't know what that meant. And I just was like, no, I just need help. Like it was just, I don't know. And I just hold a lot of resentment for that time.
Yeah,
but
I do too. I echo that completely.
It wasn't pleasant. But Erin, I think it was Erin tweeted about saying that she had her first weekend working as a doctor in this past week and she wanted to know if there was any kind of tips for a successful weekend of work. And I distinctly remember being on call for that first weekend as well. And again, being made to cry by numerous people. But I don't know, I quite like it sometimes because Twitter is med Twitter is full of bin fires. But sometimes when someone asks for like genuine advice like this, people pull together and give really sincere like responses, which I like.
Do you know what? If I needed help, I would just, you feel like you could just go to med Twitter and just tweet, I need help.
I know, and that didn't exist for us.
No, it didn't exist. So you actually didn't know where to turn to.
Exactly, yeah. I was so shy as well, which I know is hard to believe now, but like I wouldn't have thought to go to like the mess or whatever and be able to go to these senior doctors and ask for, I think things are different, maybe for the better. But
do you know what really helped me actually after the first few weeks? We had all the F1s all lived on site in like this block of flats and we were all together and we kind of knew who the consultants were who were really difficult to work with. And I remember when we had this particular surgical consultant who was an absolute cow. I'm sorry, she really was. And she would make her F1s cry. They'd be there till like 9, 10 at night on just a normal working day. whenever we would see he was rated to work with her, and some of us, if that person wasn't back by 8 o'clock, we'd all like pile down there on the ward at like 8-9 o'clock and just like help them finish their jobs. And I think that camaraderie got us through that first year, because it was really hard. I remember that first week or first month, I kept having dreams that I had killed patients.
Oh gosh,
it was really, I kept having those dreams. It was, yes.
And I don't know if the camaraderie is there as much anymore, because I know when I started, there was about 40 odd of us that were F1s in this hospital. I lived in the accommodation because I'm not a Liverpool trainee. I'd never been to Liverpool before. Yes, I did apply to work there. That was my choice. But there was only like, I think 3 of us in the hospital accommodation. So it was really difficult to get that sense of camaraderie. And a lot of the people there were local graduates from Liverpool uni and obviously knew each other. And it's really hard then sometimes coming in as an outsider from a different university.
Yeah.
So that not much of that camaraderie was there. But I did move in with a nurse who I was working with in my first rotation. She had bought a house and wanted someone to kind of split the mortgage with her. So I felt that I had some camaraderie from being like living with someone who was in healthcare and kind of understood. So I think it's just so important to have those peers, isn't it, that you can kind of share stories with and debrief and reflect with. But there was lots of nice kind of tips on that thread about kind of remembering to eat and drink and pee. That was a really important one. Like, I think people take that for granted sometimes.
What tips do you have? What has helped you, do you think, for your on-calls or long shifts or long days? Anything that kind of gets you through?
God, like hindsight's wonderful now, isn't it? But I think...
Or even now. Like, what do you do now?
For me,
I felt all those tips felt kind of relevant to kind of working even now.
Absolutely. But I think for me, I have this thing where if I have a day off or any downtime, I feel really guilty if I'm not doing anything, or if I'm just kind of like resting. I feel like I need to have plans all the time. I am someone who enjoys doing stuff. And I think sometimes you get caught up. So you might do all these like long days or nights, and then you get maybe like the weekend or rest days afterwards. And I used to just push myself to keep doing things more and more because I just felt like I had to. But I think one of my main tips is actually like you can use your days off to do nothing. Like that is allowed, and that is incredibly restorative sometimes. Like sometimes you need to just zone out, not speak, not, do anything. I think that is as important as, keeping busy and making plans and seeing friends. So I guess it's just embracing your downtime, how you want to do it, and how it's absolutely okay if you don't want to do anything. It's not being lazy. It's literally just resting. That's important. Yeah. What about yourself?
I'd probably echo what other people had said on the thread. Comfy shoes.
Skechers,
I go with my scrubs and my
Skechers
every time.
Oh, God,
yeah, I never skip a meal. No matter how busy I am, I'll always eat. And the other thing I always do, this is going to sound really weird, and I think I can only do it as a GP, it's harder in hospital, but I'll always leave the building for 5 minutes.
No, don't laugh. That's really good.
I can't eat lunch at my desk whilst I'm doing letters and path results. I have to physically get myself out the room, get outside of the building. Even if I'm in my car, I don't care, but I will be outside and I will have my lunch away from the
Neena,
building.
that's really healthy. That's really good.
If I'm in my room, I'll get constant knocks on the door. Can you just have a look at this ECG? I need to not be found for 5 minutes. I tell them, I say, I'm going out. If there's an emergency, here's my mobile number.
But that's another thing I like about this current rotation is that like we tend to go to lunch together and we'll either sit in the staff room or sit in the canteen, and it is nice to be separate, because when I was just working in my GP rotation, no one had lunch together. Like for me, I was elated if I would get to go to the supermarket across the road for a walk. Like it's exactly what you're saying. Yeah. It's that separation, isn't it? So no, I think that's incredibly a healthy stance to take. But I don't know, I'm always quite like bemused still, I guess, when senior doctors kind of suddenly gain this insight that things are still very difficult for FY1 or foundation or junior doctors or whatever. And I'm talking about a tweet. No, and I no disrespect or no shade whatsoever. So this was a tweet from Dr. Geraint Priest. And he said, talking to new F1, F2 doctors this week, can't book leave or arrange future events, can't park at the hospital and parking tickets are common when on long shifts, messed up salary payments. Whatever the reasons, it's no way to treat employees. No wonder people are leaving. And I don't know, I just think sometimes people act surprised that this is still the case. And that just amuses me.
I think they probably assume that things have improved since they were juniors. Has there been a cohort that's come through that hasn't been affected by every single one of those issues? How on earth have we not changed? How on earth has this not improved year on year? I mean, I could have written that tweet myself, like, 30, 40 years ago.
Wait, what, when you were a fetus? I was like, hang on a second. You look really good for 60. But no, in all seriousness, you're right. Like, these things just keep perpetuating, and somehow, because we accept them, they just keep happening, don't they? It's really embarrassing.
Well, it has such a massive impact on your well-being. It causes so much, these issues cause so much stress. Like, I still remember my husband not being given annual leave for our wedding.
Oh my gosh.
And we gave 1 year's notice at a new hospital, found out what the rotation would be, emailed the consultant a year in advance and said, can we just have this 1 week off? And he was told, you know, the rota will be done at that time, and if you happen to be on call, then it will be your responsibility to swap it or or pay for locum cover yourself.
Oh gosh.
Like, what? And then he got the rota, and then he was on call.
Of course he was. Like, I sometimes think about whether there's like a Christmas BMJ article in this, you know, like looking at people who request leave for significant life events and the probability that you'll be placed on call. Yeah. And there's definitely a Christmas BMJ article in this. So watch this space.
Wasn't there a tweet like ages ago? It was really funny. Didn't someone say all rota coordinators should work the rota that they put down for like a month? Before they actually design it.
That would be interesting. And enforce it now. But yeah, again, more issues with pay this month. There was a tweet from Nicole Greenshields, and she posted a screenshot of an email that was sent to the doctors in whatever trust from the HR. And essentially it was kind of saying that, you know, as you're aware, August rotation is kind of the biggest rotation of the year, you know, as if that doesn't happen every year, and that they found it really challenging. And there's been a number of late changes from HEE, and because of that, they didn't get their paperwork processed in time for August payday. And so sorry, but you're not going to get paid on time. What the heck?
This happens to every seniority level, by the way.
Yeah.
These
I don't doubt
issues
it.
with pay.
Yeah.
Yeah, same old. I think we've spoken about this before as well, haven't we? About not being paid.
Yeah, my pay's wrong this month because I had an email. So yeah, again, rotated. Even though I'm with like a lead employer, I rotated, and I think I got sent a work schedule about 12 hours before I actually started this job. And on the 2016 contract, obviously that's meant to be sent ahead of time, and they sent it to me and it was wrong. It didn't have kind of like my weekend allowances and stuff. So then I got an email from HR at lead employer to say, oh, have you got your work schedule? Because the deadline for payroll is in less than 24 hours and we haven't got one. Your hospital's not responding to us. So do you have one? And I said, well, I do, but it's wrong. So I'm trying to get it sorted. And they're like, oh, okay then. And obviously missed the deadline. So that's just, there's nothing we can do. Or it's in hand and it's like, well, it's my mortgage.
It's unacceptable.
It's crazy, man.
But imagine where you're not just being paid on time and a fair amount, but you're also given a 1,200 well-being budget.
It could only be the private sector, couldn't it? It could only be the private sector. That was the tweet by Milky Tea, at Milky Tea.
Yeah, and they wrote, chatting to my bestie's flatmate who works as an analyst, and she casually tells me how the company she works for bought her a £200 plus desk chair so she can work comfortably from home and gave her a £1,200 well-being budget. Remind me why I'm in the NHS.
Yeah. Because when I worked for the Department of Work and Pensions, I worked in the private sector briefly before switching. I felt like all my Christmases had come at once when I got a proper office chair that I got measured for to work.
You got measured for it?
Yeah,
did you?
A proper office chair. I had my GMC registration paid for that year. I had money put towards my expenses for glasses because of screen use.
No.
And we went, a few of us, kind of the admin staff and the nurses, doctors and physios, went out for like a brunch one afternoon, like on the weekend. And then a couple of weeks later, my boss texted me and said, what's your bank details? Because we owe you so much money. And the company had put like this money towards our social budget. So we just got reimbursed for this brunch, and I was just like, my jaw was on the floor. Yeah, I was like, what's the catch? Like, what, is this a joke? Or it's just insane. It's insane.
So if you were given a £1,200 wellbeing budget for yourself, what would you spend it on?
Oh my God, I don't even know. Like, not Skechers. I wouldn't spend on
They're
Skechers.
so comfortable. They're so comfortable.
What was that episode we did? And you said that you'd buy a hamster. Do you remember that?
No,
A
I
well-being
didn't.
hamster.
Can I just say, I didn't say I'd buy a hamster. I said I would have a little cuddle room, like a well-being room where there's hamsters, where you just, when you're stressed, you just go and hold one. But do you know what? Shout out to Sarge
Easily pleased.
as well. He actually sent me, after that podcast, well, sent us 2 little hamsters, toy hamsters, keyring hamsters, as a little gift. And you kindly let me keep yours.
Oh, yeah.
And so my kids, my 2 little boys, they put it on their school bag and they still have it now. They love them.
Oh, that's really
So
cute.
see, it's working for them.
But that's not
Well-being right up
£1,200 worth. That's a bargain for the NHS if they were giving you your wellbeing budget. It's just another world, though, isn't it? It's a complete other world.
Do you know, one where I did my GP my reg year as a GP in Hampshire, the surgery that I worked in was brilliant. And do you know what they did? Every 5 years, the GPs had a 3-month paid sabbatical.
Oh,
and that was for the partners and the salary GPs.
Wow.
So they were all given, every 5 years, they were all given a 3-month sabbatical. My trainer
incredible.
took his kids out of school for 3 months and got a caravan in Australia and just drove around Australia for 3 months. One of the other GPs, her husband was a gynae consultant at the local hospital. And the 2 of them like got a little team together and worked in Africa for 3 months. And it was just like people just came back just like
refreshed,
completely rejuvenated. Yeah. And you just don't feel like you're just on this like constant treadmill of like wasting life, and you're actually living your life. It was so actually that's what I would want. I would want time.
That's amazing.
I'd want
time. And Imran says time is money, man. He's got a point. He's got a point. Imran's time is worth a lot of money, clearly. I don't know how far 1,200 quid will get you, probably about 45 minutes, but yeah, time is money.
But do you know who doesn't have time? GPs, but also staff in A&E. They don't have time.
No one has time, man.
They haven't got time. They're under huge amounts of pressures. And the head of NHS England has instructed hospitals to prepare a public awareness campaign calling for people to minimise pressures on urgent and emergency services.
So I read this tweet, and then I noticed this week that when I drive into work, there's this massive billboard on the grass outside our hospital now that says in huge letters, "Help us to help our sickest patients." Then something about only attending A&E if you need to. And then there's all these like coloured boxes underneath, which has got other like 111 pharmacies, whatever. And I just thought, oh my God, like you can't, I don't know. We can't expect people to make that decision, surely.
No, you can't at all. So there's a tweet by Dr. Matthew Knight. And he kind of echoed what we were all feeling, really. "I am deeply uncomfortable about patients being encouraged to not attend A&E. I do not believe anyone goes to A&E unless they feel they need to. And the absence of need is often not identified until some tests and the input of the medical professional has occurred." I mean, it's downright dangerous telling patients not to go to A&E because it's not always clear cut when something needs A&E or when something needs a GP or when, an issue needs pharmacy input.
Hasn't there been research? I don't know who has done this, but hasn't there been research that has showed that the increase in A&E attendances is not because of people not getting GP appointments or inappropriate attendances? So it's still annoying that this rhetoric is just getting fed through all the time from
it's
government
constant.
level, isn't it?
Go on.
No, I was just going to say, I liked Parody RCGP made a comment to that and said many health professionals struggle to know when to visit ED or go to the GP. It's not binary. There's a lot of nuance. GPs have plenty of examples of patients who should have but didn't and are now living with enduring illness as a result. I don't even know when I need to go to the doctor, Neena. I just, I don't know these things.
No, it can be really hard. And there was a tweet by Ayabala Adebawale, and she put, "I called a new mum to congratulate her on the arrival of her baby. I asked how the baby was. She said the baby is so quiet and has been sleeping. He slept for 8 hours and they were glad he was such a gentle child. I screamed. That child was obviously hypoglycemic." And I actually had a very similar situation. So I had seen that this was a few years ago, about 4 years ago. The mother had booked in to see me for a really significant issue. So we'd taken quite a long time in that consultation. And then she was about to leave, and literally this is one of those hand at the door, turning around whilst I'm here. And she goes, whilst I'm here, can you just prescribe some saline nasal drops for my baby? Because my baby's been a little bit snuffly. I'm like, okay, her baby was literally just about 3 to 4 weeks old. And I said, okay, let me just see the little baby. So it was winter time. The baby was in the pushchair, had a snowsuit on, completely covered just under the nose. But I could see the child had nasal flaring. So I'm like, okay, let's get the baby on the bed straight away. And the mum said, oh no, baby's fine. Like the last few days, baby's been a little bit unsettled, hasn't been feeding as much. But today has been a lot calmer, has been improved and just kind of sleeping it off. And I'm like, right, okay, your baby's not, sleeping it off. The child was drowsy, floppy, had a respiratory rate of over 80 and a heart rate of over 200. So that baby was septic, called a blue light ambulance, and we sent the baby straight in. But this is what I mean, like things aren't clear cut.
Not at all.
You can't put that expectation on patients to decide whether or not a medical problem. Yeah, some things, earwax, for example, you can't go to A&E for that.
Yeah,
there are some obvious things, but people have got, arm pain or chest pain, and they don't know what the underlying cause is in their head. That left arm pain, that might be a heart attack, because that's what they have. That's what their understanding is, and
it's just as valid. Yeah, but tell me though, does Lyme disease go to A&E? Why we brought this up? I take full responsibility.
Do you know what? I was so tempted to delete this tweet.
I think we have to mention it, no matter how much it cooks our Swede. We've got to mention this. Right,
let's do it. Get me some alcohol.
Yeah, this was a thread by Graham, no last name.
Cheers, Graham.
That one of our colleagues, Jimmy Lamb, a GP, highlighted this week. And it was a picture of a child's arm and a leg with what looked like a number of erythematous target lesions, pretty much looking like erythema multiforme. And the original post said, another GP disgrace, refusal to see my little boy after strange rashes appear, diagnosed over the phone as hives from insect bites. To me, it looked like Lyme disease. Okay. Take him to A&E, seen by a doctor, diagnosed with Lyme disease. GP can't keep getting away with that. And then for some reason, they bloody tagged the disgrace that is Alison Pearson into the end of that tweet. It had all the components of a Daily Mail headline.
That is what I'd spend my wellbeing budget on, getting rid of. If we all collectively put our wellbeing budgets together, can we just get rid of the Daily Mail and the Telegraph and all their journalists? That would actually do wonders for my well-being, because this really pissed me off, this tweet, and all the responses to it. I didn't even read all the responses.
But no, I think it was along the lines of all these armchair doctors, and do not get me wrong, I would never downplay anyone's concerns. And someone had a little go at me and said, this parent was worried. And I'm like, yes, I completely take that on board. But what is not appropriate is this vile, completely offensive and insulting GP bashing. And it's just half the story. And this person was like, I've got no medical qualifications, but that looked like Lyme disease to me. And it's like, you can't say that. And also, if a doctor diagnosed those target lesions as Lyme disease, then I'm not sure that's the best diagnosis or the most appropriate diagnosis anyway.
Yeah.
It was just a whole pile of steaming dog turd, the entire thread.
There's just a lot of, firstly, GP bashing feels like a national sport right now. It's just open game on GPs. But I also think that it's just based on a huge degree of ignorance as to what the GPs actually do. And there's a tweet by Ian Punja. I mean, this is from 25th of July, so it's a while ago, but it just encapsulates what we do. So he just put, Team GP, typical day is 100 names on a screen, right? And then he's just given some examples of what he's had. So a 13-year-old boy locked himself in a bathroom self-harming. 89-year-old had a fall, paramedics asking GP to review. 50-year-old lady can't move her right arm. 9-year-old lost vision in right eye. Lab rings with a potassium of 2.8. So, these are the sorts of things that we're dealing with. So if you've got that huge volume of patients, then you have to see you can't see 100 patients face to face. You're going to be there for,
use that clinical judgment. Yeah,
exactly.
And Shivani made a good point. So Shivani retweeted, I've just seen the Lyme disease GP bashing tweet. How do we educate the public on how the practice of medicine is undertaken. It's an art, not a science. It's not a game show where you have to get the diagnosis in one shot or you're a shitty doctor. But I'm not even sure that it's possible to do this now, because something just appears to have shifted completely.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's more since COVID or whether it was kind of starting to happen before COVID, but now it's like GP's a public enemy number one. And I'm just not hopeful, I guess, that public perception can be changed with regards to all this.
We've been completely vilified in like so many media outlets, and it's like it's happening over and over again. So the public are gonna, you tell a lie enough times, it becomes the truth.
Yeah.
And people are angry, they want someone to blame, and their stories are valid that they can't get GP appointments, or but
absolutely.
And the media have given them, some media outlets have given them a cause for it. You can't get an appointment because your GP's closed, your GP's lazy. So obviously that just fires up their anger, but there's no engagement of brain, actually. No, that's not true. It's pure ignorance. But it's having massive
it has consequences,
impacts.
doesn't it? Yeah, it has consequences.
So another tweet by @MilkyT, and she put, as a response to Graham's tweet, as a quote tweet to Graham's tweet, "This is why I changed my mind about training as a GP in F2. Nothing but constant abuse from the public, who don't understand the pressure GPs are under and will constantly try to hold them rather than the government responsible for the current state of primary care."
It's certainly given me, it's making me have second thoughts about kind of why on earth am I entering into GP when it's currently like this? What am I doing?
Yeah. If people ask me what I do for a living, I don't actually say I'm a GP, because it's just not worth, I can't predict what they're going to say. It's just not worth dealing with that backlash. I just say, I'm in healthcare, and just try and move the discussion on. And I know I shouldn't. I should be proud to say I'm a GP, blah, blah, blah.
But you've got to protect yourself, haven't you? That's the most important thing. But and I think from trying to turn it round and be a bit more positive, there was a nice tweet from Dr. Anita Munoz, who, it wasn't related to this, but I think it just came at the right time, essentially, because we are getting, I'm certainly getting disillusioned by it all. And they said, "What's a GP? A clinician who treats every bodily complaint in any age, who doesn't turn you away or say not my area, who treats your skin, heart, kidneys and battered psyche in a single episode. If that's not a super specialty, I don't know what is." That serves quite as a good reminder, essentially, doesn't it, of kind of, I guess, why people, why we go into this kind of career. But I don't know, it's really important, no matter what specialty you do, no matter what training program you're in, it'll never not be important to have helpful seniors and good trainers on board, will it? It's just one of those fundamentals.
It has a massive impact. So this is a tweet by Sarah Marsden. Her Twitter handle is @GasolingSarah. And she put, "Time this will have taken on-call consultant to send, minimal. Impact on morale, huge." And the message was, "You've all been a brilliant team overnight. Well done. I hope you have a good weekend. Thanks."
It's just something so minor, isn't it? But it's so gratifying.
Have you had any experience of a consultant doing something for you or the team that has made a huge impact on your morale? Something quite small that made a big impact?
Yeah, last week. So where I am at the moment, there was one particular day last week, there was 2 SHOs and 2 AMPs covering the unit. And we were getting ready for the afternoon MDT, and one of the consultants walked in with cake for all of us. She'd been to the canteen and just bought cake for us all, and just said, "Oh, I thought you could all do with this." And we were just that's just I was like, "Oh my God, why are people so kind?" I was just and I'm thinking,
so
what is the catch? Yeah. And I can't think of, it makes me sad again that I can't think of many experiences where I've actually felt listened to, or I can think of many more times. And I know our minds always go to a negativity bias anyway, that's human.
Yeah.
But in neurosurgery, constantly I'd be ridiculed after night shifts and called lazy or whatever, humiliated for whatever reason in front of my whole bunch of colleagues at the time. And I wasn't lazy. I know that sounds like I'm probably protesting too much, but people just, I don't know. It's just a rarity that these things happen now. It's so sad.
Yeah, it is. It is.
It's so sad.
Even now, if one of the senior GPs or the practice manager sends me a message saying, "Well, could you pop up after your clinic, or could you can I talk to you?" I'll always assume there's something, even though I've got no reason to. I start thinking back, "Oh crap, what have I done? Have I upset anyone? Is there a complaint?" I'll always assume it's something negative, because no one kind of calls you up to say, oh, well done, you did that today.
Like a positive, message. And but there was also, like, talking about neurosurgery and going the other way, there was a lovely thread from Mr. Michael Canty, who's a consultant neurosurgeon, and that was about the importance of a good trainer. And I think this goes, like, no matter, again, what specialty you're in, I think it strikes a chord with us all, and I really hope that all doctors will come across people like this in their careers, like I say, no matter what specialty you end up doing. But he just made the point that he was a junior neurosurgery trainee. He had a patient with a large extradural hematoma that was life-threatening and it needed kind of operating on. He had not done it before. The consultant came in, supervised him through it all. He said he remained patient throughout, even kind of the more challenging parts. And then at the end of it all, the consultant insisted that the trainee speak to the family, and for the trainee to tell the family that he did the operation and that he saved this patient's life. And he just said it was just a simple, powerful experience that did wonders for his confidence, and he called himself a very green trainee, and that he thought it served as a good reminder that kind of those positive training moments can be extremely simple but so profound.
They stay with you as well. Like, you'll always remember those trainers who do that.
Yeah. So I really hope that, I feel like these people it's a shame to say that I don't think that's the norm, but I really hope that all trainees will come across people like that in their careers. It's like those little things that keep you going and keep you moving forward, isn't it?
But it can be tricky to know.
Yes.
It can be tricky
Yes, it can.
when you're rotating round and you're having different supervisors who like the same thing done in completely different ways.
Yeah.
So this is a tweet by Wes Channel, and he put, learning anaesthetics reminds me a bit of learning how to drive, except you have a different driving instructor each day. And if you try and drive like the last person taught you, they'll think you're crazy.
That resonated with me so much, especially in neuro.
I can imagine.
Like, I feel like I had to have so many different personalities, and I had to have a different personality for each boss that I was kind of operating with. And it wasn't just about the techniques or the operating kind of methods that they wanted. That was like one half of the battle, and people had different tricks that they would like, and then if you did that with another consultant, they'd be like, who on earth taught you that, and tear you to shreds. But it was also about like how to act. So there were some consultants that I knew I could talk to and have a normal conversation. Then there's other consultants that I knew I'd practically have to remain silent with. Yeah. And trying to remember all those was just incredibly exhausting.
No,
I'd be afraid to slip up. And I think when that happens, I think we have this real risk of sometimes feeling like you can't win, and you constantly, I guess, panicking that you're going to slip up and do something that somebody won't like, and that can be incredibly deflating then, can't it? Because
you're not doing anything wrong.
No, you can't just be how you want to be. Yeah. Did you feel like you had to act a certain way when you were like a trainee?
Of course I did. Exactly what you said. A lot of my consultants had very different personalities, and some of them had very strong personalities. So you had to kind of know what's going to piss them off and what's not going to piss them off. And I really felt that I felt free once I'd got my CCT to be free of that. CCT. Like, I was like, oh, hang on, I don't have to answer to anybody. Like, you could just go in and just like be yourself, work how you want to work, get your own way of doing things, and no one's telling you actually you shouldn't be doing it that way. So life, for me anyway, life has definitely work life has definitely been a lot better, a lot easier since CCTing.
Just got to get to that point, man. I can't do any more training programs. I just want to CCT in something.
You're not doing any more training programs. You're going to finish this one. Banned. Not letting you.
But there was a tweet that went a bit viral. It got well over 4,000 likes, and I appreciated the sentiment of this tweet, but I thought maybe this is not a senior colleague that you might not want to emulate. And I don't know whether to mention who tweeted it, but essentially it was a consultant surgeon. Mm-hmm. And they said, the part of the NHS people don't see. I'm on annual leave, but at home. Called today about a patient who was admitted. I'm now going in to do her operation as I'm the best person to do it. I won't claim any money or time back. This is the best thing for the patient. Full stop. And like, I get the sentiment, and I guess it's in a way it is commendable. And this person clearly wants the best for her patients, but I'm just worried about how potentially unhealthy for that person this behaviour can be.
Not only for that person, but the precedent that it sets for your juniors as well. So if you're doing that yourself, is that what your expectations are going to be of your juniors? And if that, do they then see that as the norm? And there was just a good the responses were bang on. I quite liked the response by Digital and Tech GP. His Twitter handle is Dr. Gandel 52, and he put admirable post, but disagree with the emotion, full stop. This behaviour is Stockholm syndrome-like, leading to burnout in clinicians as it pushes altruism to keep a system in distress running. Claim your time back and don't push this as an example for others. And yeah, a lot of people were saying something.
Yeah, I think the
similar
sentiment was echoed quite a few times. But yeah, like you say about the trainees, and then does it mean that if you were not someone willing to go in on your day off and not claim time or money back for that, then does that mean that you don't care about your patients? It's really complex, I think, that type of behaviour, isn't it?
But we have that so much in medicine. It's like you're expected to stay late, you're expected to do the extra hours. But hang on, why do we put that on ourselves? Why do we create that environment? And do you know what? I can't stay extra hours. I've got to pick up my kids up from school. I have a life outside of work. Work is work, but we're expected to be actors, martyrs, and this job is our calling. And if you're in healthcare, then you should be doing it because of the good of your heart, not because it's just a job. I mean, that whole, it's all.
Finley's response made me laugh, though. He said, on call this weekend, given the extraordinary pressures the NHS is under, I will be doing this for free. Also, we'll be donating a unit of blood each day to replenish stocks in our blood bank. And there was another reply to that, which made me howl, from Laura. And she said, unless you are also offering free boiler checks with each patient discharged, then I'm afraid you failed. Is that what we're getting to?
That's not. I know GPs that have been asked to do a home visit for boiler checks.
For hot water,
I've once been asked to go and do an urgent home visit to fix someone's chair because that was his chair. Needed. His chair was broken. And because his chair was broken, he had to sit on the sofa. The sofa was too soft and it gave him back pain. So unless I could come out and fix his chair, his back pain was never going to get better. I'm like, bloody you really don't want me to be coming out.
That's a very convoluted way to get you to fix the chair.
And I tried to explain, So you know what? It's not too far from the truth.
No, and I'm a plumber's daughter, so I have learned quite a fair few things about boiler checks and hot water. So I am waiting for my time to shine that I get a home visit and someone tells me, oh, my hot water's gone off. And I'll be like, let me just check the pressure on this combi boiler. I'm waiting for that moment. I'm waiting.
I was actually also once asked to do a home visit for someone's dog because their dog was sick. And I said, oh, I'm a doctor of humans. And they're like, can you
I'm a human vet. But I don't know, as a trainee, there's this thing where I can't speak for everyone, but I'm very much a people pleaser. And there's this thing I just constantly want to please my seniors all the time. I just want to look like I'm doing a good job. I want people to be happy. And
you don't want to get told off.
No, that's what I'm afraid of. It's happened too many times already.
So this was a tweet by Dr. Albert Gifford, and he put, consultant today said, well done for being proactive. Little does she know, it's really just me immediately doing tasks when a consultant requests it in fear of being told off. I think that's why we all did it.
I really felt that tweet. Really felt it. And along the same lines as kind of overthinking, there was a tweet that came up by @Dr. Amy Saidi. And this just really resonated with me as well in kind of my overthinking type psyche. And she was talking about kind of how tone in emails can be perceived. So she said, I'm tired of stressing about how punctuation affects tone in emails. Is this too many exclamation points? Is this full stop too harsh? No more. I'm just not going to use punctuation in emails anymore. Stream of consciousness, baby. And I'm like, yes, oh my God, I think about full stops. I'm like, oh my God, do I sound like a bitch if I put a full stop there? I write an email, Neena. I can't just write it and then press send. I then pretend I'm the other person reading it. I then have to read it in their frame of mind. Does that exclamation mark make me sound like crazy? Does that full stop make me sound pissed off? Then I delete the punctuation and then it's a curse. It's an absolute curse.
The only punctuation I get that stresses me out is my colons and my semicolons.
Oh, I love a good semicolon.
I just don't feel like I do them right. I just don't do my semicolons right. Or my colons.
I don't know what the rule is. So for me, I use a semicolon when I feel that a full stop is just a bit too harsh. I'm like, I'll stick a little semicolon in there. And then I feel like it's a bit more friendlier. But I think I've just made up grammar
avoid
rule.
all colons and semicolons.
A colorectal surgeon can't say that. You're lucky you're a GP, girl.
Can't avoid colons.
No. How do you sign off your emails, by the way? Like, because this is another debate that always comes
It
back
depends
up,
who it is. If I'm feeling really pissed off with somebody, I'll put kind regards.
Ooh.
I know. But not really like,
Criminal.
lots of love, Neena.
See, my
I'm like really casual. I don't think
Neena.
about my emails. Yeah. It's literally just as from my pocket. I'm literally, as I'm doing something, I never reread it. I'll just write it.
I don't know why I worry about these things
and it
so
has
much.
just got littered with typos and
Yeah, because there's people talk
but
about
no
like
colons.
whether regards is no colons. Whether regards is harsh. My favourite go-to is I like to end it with like "Take care, Bethan."
I might use that. I sometimes use best
sometimes
wishes.
It's too informal. I think
I use best wishes a lot.
Or if I'm worried, I'll be like with my very best wishes. And I'm like, oh fucking hell, Bethan. Oh, sorry, swear. Bloody hell, Bethan, you're trying way too hard. Calm down, Gail.
I might use your take care.
Yeah,
no, take care.
It's really nice. But talking about emails and IT, something that we can all relate with or relate to rather was a thread. No, it was a that came up about IT, and that was by Yusuf Hashmi, and he said, I'm starting to realise that the workload junior doctors face would be halved if we had A, enough computers or printers that actually work, B, IT systems that don't take 10 minutes to load up or crash or freeze randomly. Spent nearly 2 hours today trying to print out a single request form, tried 7 different printers in different locations, each one faulty. I wish I was exaggerating. Please tell me why the IT system in my university was better than in a hospital where actual lives are at stake. Word.
I mean, working in A&E and then working in GP, it's just worlds away. Like that's the one thing that I find the most frustrating. You see a patient, firstly there's nowhere to see a patient, so you're spending half your time bloody looking for a bed or even a chair, like, or a room, just any space to see someone, and then you see them and you just can't find a computer. You can't find any computer, so you're just standing there waiting for someone to finish their notes, so then you can go on, and then you have to log out of them, and then you have to log on, and you have to wait ages while the whole computer restarts. And then whilst you're typing, someone's like, oh, are you nearly finished with your computer? I'm like, no, I've just spent 20 minutes trying to log on. Yeah. And then in GP, go on, sorry.
No, go on. I was
just going to say the contrast in GP, obviously it's completely different, but you've got your own computer. When I go into work, it's already set up for me, so it's already on, everything's already ready, so I just have to literally just pop
princess.
Hello, drama queen. They do this for everybody at my GP practice anyway.
Okay.
But it makes such a difference, and then you just got your own. It didn't even cross my mind that IT, like computer issues, would be a problem
GP IT was good. I was kind of, obviously things can be better, but I was amazed by like how much I could access from just that one program, and I thought it was really kind of good. I don't know, I think, and when you're in hospital, like the computers on wheels never work, but on my current unit, some are like the cows, but so on my current unit, some are like quite passively aggressively chained to the wall with like these heavy duty metal chains. So they're on wheels, but you can't take them anywhere. IT is just a huge bugbear, isn't it?
Another little boo-boo I made as an SHO. I was doing my obs and gynae rotation, and we just had those computers on wheels that were just trialling it in our ward first in the hospital.
Is this 30, 40 years ago?
No, this is 30, 40 years
ago. I'm joking.
And we were all there, like the reg, the SHO, and like the lead midwife that's on labour ward. And then, it was the consultant, the reg, the SHO, the head midwife, and we were about to start a ward round. And I was the most junior person on the team. And then the reg looked at me, she goes, can you go and get the cow? And I was like, oh.
No.
I thought that meant the consultant on the ward, consultant of the ward. And so I was like,
oh yeah, we've called them that in peds.
I was like, oh, I'm like, the cow. And they're all just looking at me. I'm like, so, and then she kept saying, can you go and get the cow? And she was a consultant who was known to be quite harsh. So I'm like, all right.
Oh, so like she was calling her a cow. Oh my God, I just got that.
I was like looking around, like everyone else was completely pan-faced, like, is no one going to say anything? So I just went up to the consultant saying, oh, could you join our ward?
Just think thinking that they'd all called her a cow.
God,
Bloody
it was
hell,
the
Neena.
most embarrassing moment. Embarrassing. I had never
My
heard, just say,
God.
get the computer. Like it, oh, yeah,
It's
that
the
was,
computer on wheels.
that was
Yeah.
really...
In when I used to work in the children's hospital, the consultant of the week was called the cow, and I always used to get really confused. Oh, phone the cow. It's like, oh, okay. Which farm are they on? But yeah, I don't know. There's like lots of these little things can really impact on like burnout, I guess, can't they? Like when they all culminate together, it can just lead to burnout and frustration and kind of bash your well-being. And a big change in topic, but there was a little question posed by Claire Davies this week, and she just said, I thought it was a very good question. I really enjoyed reading these replies. And she said, what has been your best get back to work hack after burnout? There you go. There was a lot of back hacks in that
Yeah,
one.
that was.
I was losing the hack back plot. But yeah, do you think you've ever been burnt out, Neena? Does that resonate with you at all?
I have. I got really burnt out. This was it was really bad actually. This was in 2020, the beginning of the pandemic. And I think, I don't know if this is a thing, but I think I was life burnt out rather than just work. Is that a thing? It wasn't just work burnt out.
Burnout can happen in any capacity, yeah.
I was completely burnt out, like from every angle. Like I think 2020 was just 2020 to the beginning of 2021. That year was a really challenging year. So I had 2 bereavements of really close family members, and I couldn't make both the funerals. One, I got COVID the day before for my cousin's funeral, and it was very difficult. My dad was diagnosed with cancer October 2020. I had a cancer scare that year as well. I had to go through the 2-week rape process, and my car was written off on the motorway, and I was working as a salary GP, and I was just doing, I wasn't happy at work at all. I was staying, extra 3-4 hours every day after each shift. And it got to about January, February 2021, and I just hit a brick wall. I just couldn't keep going. I think how I coped with things was really poor. So when I was going through everything with, my grandma dying, my cousin, and my dad's cancer and everything, how I coped with it was I threw myself into work so I wouldn't have to think about everything else that was going on. And you think as like someone who, advises patients on a fairly regular basis about, healthy coping strategies, you'd think I would know a little bit better, but no, I had a really unhealthy way of coping with it. I just worked and worked, and that was only just so I wouldn't have to think. And I didn't actually realize how burnt out I was. There was a medical secretary in my GP practice who actually came to my room, and she said, you're not right. You're not right. She just said, you're not yourself right now. She goes, you don't come upstairs to say hello to us anymore. Your message emails are very short and curt. You're just not yourself. And it was only when she said it did I actually realize how bad I was. I didn't really have insight into it. I didn't really want to admit it to myself as well. But then the practice manager told me to take some time out. And I thought, my God, if they're asking me to take some time out, I must be.
Yeah. And that's coming from a place of care, isn't it? And I think burnout is really hard to recognise in yourself. And I had a slightly similar experience, whereas I think it was quite early on in my neurosurgery training, and I was kind of getting to know like the staff, because we were kind of based in one unit. We didn't really rotate in neurosurgery, and I just found myself just becoming very tearful and very kind of withdrawn, and just had this whole kind of sense of being defeated constantly, and what's the point, and tired, and people would say, oh, you look really pale, or you look tired, or you look peaky. And I just didn't know what was happening. And it was one of the specialist nurses came to me and said, oh, were you burnt out? And I'd never heard that phrase before.
No,
it was only like
hadn't heard
4 or 5 years ago.
But
I didn't know. And I thought, oh, I don't know what that means, but I don't know. And she said, oh, it's and explained like a little bit about what it was. But it was very much just a passing comment. And I thought, oh, it bothered me, but not in a bad way that someone had made that comment. So I thought, oh, however, whatever's happening to me is obviously visible to other people now. Like, obviously I know things, I guess, are not
anymore.
quite right. But now it's out there. And that actually prompted me to actually I'd not been registered with a GP since I left my parents' home and like at the age of 18. And I was it was now 10 years or so later. I'd never been registered with a GP. But that comment, for some reason, just prompted me to register.
Yeah.
And I went. And I think I went to the GP and said, oh, I'm just feeling like tired all the time. And she said, oh, we'll do some bloods. And then it just came out. I said, oh, there's this thing about burnout, and everything just fit. And it's just strange that you sometimes need that other outside party, I guess, to kind of recognize it, isn't it? But there was lots of good kind of little tips on that thread. And like I said, I did really enjoy reading the replies, and it gave me a sense of...
any ones that resonated with you, or what tips would you have about returning to work after burnout?
I guess on the whole, it was just like validating to see other people had experienced similar things. So there's that connection, isn't it, that we know that we're not alone and this happens to people, and it's obviously a big thing in healthcare workers. But just all the things really, like kind of visiting your family, going on holiday, journaling, therapy. Like therapy was the key for me, you know, doing things that energize you or not doing anything if that's your thing. And then I think I'm now less than full time for like partly health reasons, and that does relate to kind of mental health and burnout. But less than full time is a good means, I think, to kind of combating burnout, isn't it?
Yeah.
But there was this question asked this week, and I know you have some experience of this with your husband, but there was a question asked, and it said, one of my friends is a male orthopedic registrar. He's struggling at work, and I suggested that he goes less than full time so he can get some breathing space for self-care. 100% agree with that. But then he said that he thinks he will be laughed out as a male doctor. Advice, please. And it just irked me that. Not him personally, but the fact that this is perpetuating, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, my husband had a similar experience. So after our second baby, about a year after, I returned back to work, but they wanted me to understandably do one on-call day a week. So commit to like one full day, like, 10 or whatever hours. But I couldn't do that with a 3-year-old and
of course,
and a little baby.
Yeah.
So, one of the days my husband would have to reduce his hours so that he could just pick up the kids from nursery, or just look after the baby and also pick up the little one from nursery. He only went 3 hours a day at that point. And so he applied to go 80%, just for, I think, it was 6 months or a year, he just went 80%. And the first thing he was told was, you're the first male trainee who's ever asked us that before.
Crazy.
And then he was asked, well, why would you need to go 80%? And he said, oh, because for my kids. And he said they just looked completely baffled that a man would need to go 80% for childcare reasons. And it is this whole thing, like childcare responsibilities, it's still an expectation on the mother. And I really don't think that has made much progress.
No,
over
it's
recent
such a
years.
Shame, isn't it? So
not
damaging.
As much as we think, or think they have.
I agree. And we've kind of touched, I think, on maybe our last podcast, I think, about the difficulties that people can face, especially as healthcare professionals and doctors when they are patients. And I think we spoke last podcast, there was someone who was needing surgery and they were trying to sort it so that they could still do their ARCP and things like that.
Yeah.
But it was quite like, I don't know, I've just found this really upsetting this week because it connected a lot with a recent experience of my own.
Yeah.
And that was a tweet by Dr. Raja Adnan Ahmed. And he tweeted, this week, a junior doctor told me they were asked to submit their hospital appointment letter to prove that they really got one. I never have to do that. Has this been a routine policy or part of a new wellbeing initiative? How infantilizing is that?
I know. It makes you feel completely untrusted.
Yeah. And where's the confidentiality? Like,
exactly. Yeah. Gosh. Yeah. I didn't even think of that. Yeah. Exactly.
But yeah, I had a recent 2 week wait, and thankfully it was all okay. When I knew I was going to be referred to that, I started panicking about work, and I knew I was going to go onto a new rotation, and I was like, oh my God, what if I only start and then I've got and because it was a breast clinic, I knew it was going to be like an hour, a couple of hours, like the appointment and stuff. And I thought, oh my God, like now I'm panicking about work, and are they going to give me the time off? I've only just started. What if it's on a day where I'm meant to be on call or whatever? And when they rang me and said it was going to be on a Monday, which is my day off anyway, I just had this massive sense of, and I told my supervisor about this, and they said, oh, but you would never have to worry about that here. Like, it does, if you had an appointment like that, we would make sure that you'd go to it. And then I read Dr. Ahmed's tweet, and I just thought, God, like, I'm so lucky to have that. And then there's other trainees that are being treated like this. It's just atrocious. I just don't know how we are working in healthcare, but then we're treated like this when we need healthcare ourselves and we need kind of medical input.
And once you're there, sometimes it's not even, it can be quite tricky if there are other observers or students in the room when you're having an intimate exam or something really personal. This is a tweet by Claire Davies again, and she put, if the patient is a healthcare professional, ask if they are okay with students or observers in the room. Who knows when the students pop up again and the healthcare professional is now supervising them. It isn't appropriate to assume it's okay. The same goes for all patients.
That happened to me with that breast clinic this week. It was atrocious. Like I went, the whole thing was atrocious for a number of reasons, but just focusing on this reason, I went into the clinic room and the room was like full of people and the person doing it said, oh, we have a room full today. And then kind of said, oh, you know, introduce, this is a student, medical student, this is a staff nurse, this is a student nurse or whatever. But it was just a comment like, we have a room full today, not...
Were you asked permission at any point?
I wasn't asked. I wasn't, you know, it wasn't kind of, oh, there's these people sitting in, is that okay? And it just felt like a lot of people, like normally I expect like one observer, but when there's more than one, and the fact that she used a room full as her terminology, I was and I think I was just completely struck by it and didn't challenge it because I just wanted to get the whole ordeal over and done with.
Also, how do you challenge it? Because it's really difficult then once you're already in that position. Like if I have a student in my room, a student with me in GP clinic, like normally you have in that surgery, you have the little call button, like you ping a patient in from the waiting room. But if I have a student with me, I make sure that I just go to the waiting room, I call them myself, and then I ask them permission before they've actually seen the student in my room. Because once you're faced with that person, then you're telling them to leave can make that
the balance is not
really
the balance
guilty.
Is not equal anymore at that point.
No, not at all. So
I think and
it has to be phrased in a way like it's your choice.
Exactly.
It makes no impact on the student or myself, you know, whatever you feel comfortable.
I thought about this afterwards, and I actually think that maybe that's why they said it in that manner, is because then it's much harder for the patient to refuse. So by you walking in and saying, oh, we have a room full here today, as a statement, it's like there's no question for me to respond to.
And it's an intimate exam.
Yeah,
like it's a breast examination.
It's just
you know?
such a vulnerable kind of time that
vulnerable.
You can see how people will just go along with it to get it over and done with. And even like people like ourselves who are healthcare workers and know the system, we still get caught out by it. So you can imagine how, you know, any person, a non-healthcare professional would feel. But I don't know, just this constant experiences like this of being on the other side of things, and for whatever reasons, it's happened a few times for me in the past couple of years, but it's just constantly like changing my practice constantly. And I feel like I'm quite an empathetic person, and I will always try and empathize with people. That's just like my natural stance. But when you experience it and know with yourself as well, when you've had that experience, it just, I don't know, it just, this whole mindset changes and the respect changes, and it's just a new level of respect. And my practice is constantly changing.
I think when you have bad experiences as a patient, like I've had that a couple of times when my dad was ill, and also my 2-week wait as well for my skin. I thought I had keratoacanthoma, and you actually learn what not to do. Like it actually, the negative encounters have a really big impact. So that's probably changed my practice the most, is actually experiencing it from the other side.
Yeah, I wouldn't wish it. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. I wouldn't wish anyone unwell. But if there's something that you can take from it, I guess it's that, isn't it? But should we go to something a bit more lighthearted to finish?
Something lighthearted. Can I start with Zach Ferguson's tweet, because this was so funny? So he put, instead of going to see a doctor, I just tweet a list of my symptoms in the third person and then add, what's going on here? I'll release the answer tomorrow. #medical mystery. #dead. Get the diagnosis quicker.
It was
that
the
way.
#medhead that proper tickled me. Because I don't know, sometimes...
I love the #medical
like sometimes
mystery.
with the algorithm on Twitter, I get like a lot of posts about, it's a lot of the like these very educational American MD accounts that will post like pathology slides or pictures of scans and all these kind of symptoms.
I hate the ones that they say, I'll post the answer tomorrow. I'm like, well, no, just like, I'm not gonna.
But I just thought, it just made me laugh. I thought, oh, are they just doing it because they don't know the answer? And waiting for us to comment, oh yeah, that's right, that's the one.
That's so something I'm going to do from now on. What's
I like
going
that
on
a lot.
here?
And another tweet I liked, it got me thinking about our personalities, Neena, and I'd be interested to see what you say.
Oh,
But
God.
this was a tweet by Alex Nevard, is it? And he said, my mum said to me, I don't know how you can do what you do and call yourself an introvert. And I assume he's an emergency medicine trainee. So he then said, so EM people of Twitter, any other introverts out there, or is the stereotype of loud type A personality well-founded in emergency medicine? Do you feel you have the personality of a GP? That's what I want to know.
I feel like I have like my work personality and then my... Actually, do you know what? I don't. It all kind of merges into one. No, I think I'm just kind of loud and clueless most of the time. So
That's probably why I like you so much.
A&E GP.
Yeah.
What about
I don't know.
you?
I was sort of, like the different type A, type B personalities. I don't know what I am.
Yeah.
So type A, people say, is like the high achiever, goal orientated, good under stress, impatient, which is not me. Type B, the impatient. Maybe we're a combination of all these things. Type B is like what they call like the socializer. So relationship orientated, outgoing, enthusiastic. Relationship orientated, yes. Enthusiastic. So depends. Type C is the thinker, so that's detail orientated.
Oh, you've actually got the look this up.
I love all this stuff.
Oh
no. Type A I knew, but the others I didn't know. So type C is like detail orientated, logical, prepared, which is definitely I don't think I'm a prepared person. Are you a prepared person?
Hell no. God no. Look how much we prepare for this podcast. Can't you tell I'm not a prepared person? You're type C.
Actually, no, I do like a good list. That is
you
true.
are so prepared.
Yeah, I do like a good
Are you
list.
kidding me?
And then type D is like the supporter. So task orientated, cautious, stabilizing. I don't know. It's hard. Obviously, it's a very rudimentary way, but sometimes it makes me laugh. Sometimes when I think about people and how they fit into like certain boxes and stuff.
Specialties.
But I'd be intrigued to know as to what a GP personality would be and whether any of us fit into that. But probably safer not asking, actually, after recent events. But something that the boys always like to include on their podcast is a fest hole as well, isn't there? They love a good fest hole.
I'm not reading this one out.
No, you're talking about the NHS Fest, which
I'm talking about NHS Fest.
No, so NHS Fest is this random page that's cropped up recently that's talking about NHS confessions, but some of them are very naughty, and we couldn't possibly talk about them on the podcast. But no, the boys, have you seen Fest Hole?
I have seen Fest Hole. I love Fest Hole.
The boys love a Fest Hole, but there was this really bittersweet one this week, wasn't there? About have you got it?
Deleted that
one. No, so okay, I'll read it out. So this is I don't know, it just made me sad. And it said,
oh no, yes, I do know which one you're talking about. Yeah, so I haven't got it. I've deleted it, but I do know which one you're talking about.
So they said shared a flat with a nurse in 2020. When she was on shift, I sometimes used to borrow a uniform from her wardrobe and go out dressed up as a key worker, pretending to go to and from work just to get outside. Probably saved me. London was eerily quiet. I was like, oh, that's just...
That made me cry. That's really...
But to be fair...
Firstly, I thought that tweet was going to go a very different way.
Not me, Neena.
I'm sorry.
Couldn't possibly be me. But, I think, during that time, during lockdowns, I felt incredibly lucky to go to work again. I've never felt that before, but to go and see people
just
and have lunch with people,
that
was that's kind of made
and
me
also
sad
escaping from homeschooling the kids. Oh my God, that's
bless
probably what led
you.
me to life burnout. Having a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old, homeschooling them. But that's enough to burn anyone out.
Let's finish on a really wholesome note. Again, this is bittersweet and kind of sad, I guess, but a really lovely tweet to read by @Kerry Hudson, which she posted on August the 20th at 11:57. And just telling you the details there because I would recommend going to read that in the replies. But do you want to read out that tweet, Neena?
Yeah, it's a lovely tweet. And she wrote, for a piece, what's the most comforting thing a doctor, or social worker, or benefits person has said to you? Not as part of their job, just as part of their humanity. This week, 2 doctors made me cry just by acknowledging I have in fact been very ill. Such a small but important thing.
And the reply is just it just got to me because a lot of the people were just saying things that you would just expect a comment for a decent human to make, just validating someone's pain or validating, that of course you know your own body best, and how people had clung on to these sentences and they've really stuck in their mind as kind of things that healthcare professionals have said that they just found incredibly comforting.
Yeah, like the theme is always just having it's how powerful it was, just having a doctor believing them.
I know.
Which you just assume is always the case, but believing them or just trying to understand the impact that their illness or the pain that has had on their life, but actually verbalizing it and saying it out loud. Like, I think sometimes we just assume patients will know that we care and we acknowledge what they're feeling, but actually just saying it and essentially just how powerful validating that can be for the patient.
Absolutely. And there's things like, so people are just saying things like, oh, the GP said, that sounds really awful to live with. Just the acknowledgement meant the world to me. And I think it's those comments like, you can know all the medicine in the world, but just being a compassionate human. And we just can't ever underestimate the power of the words that you say in these kind of types of consultations and interactions. It just brought that home to me, I think.
Do you know what reply I really liked? There's a reply by Kate Hogarth, and she put, like, the response from the GP, I think, in comments, this isn't your fault. This isn't because you did something wrong or you didn't try hard enough. Was it? One sentence, world of difference.
Yeah, that's incredibly important.
I have had a lot of patients who, you assume that they've come in with something, and of course it's not their fault, their symptoms or their pain, but actually they believe that, and to someone to say out loud to them, this isn't because of anything you've done, it's not your fault, it's freeing. They hold on to that guilt for so long.
And we see it in patients who have like new diagnoses of malignancies or tumours, and they're like, oh, but I've been so healthy, or I don't smoke. And it's like, unfortunately, like, this is not anything that you've done. As in, unfortunately, it's not something that you've done, but it's like, I think sometimes people want, it's harder. They feel like they're
complications as well.
It just lifts that blame, I guess, off people, doesn't it? And, you can never blame yourself for those kind of things, but it's easy for us to think that, and people will just inherently do that. So probably a good note to end on, do you think?
Yes, I think so.
So I guess.
Oh, and it's bank holiday this weekend.
I'm off Mondays anyway, so I'm like, So I'm just like, it's a normal
bank holiday weekend for you
every weekend. Yeah, baby. Yeah.
Right, I'm sending my kids to you every Monday for the rest of the summer holidays.
Lord help them. Lord help them then. But behave, everyone. Stay cool.
And have a good bank holiday if you're not working.
Oh, and don't forget your microscope.
And if you're...
Did you see that this week? Was it pathology, Royal College of Pathology exams? They sent out an email.
Oh, yes!
Don't forget to bring your own microscope. So don't forget to bring your microscope, people. Let's leave it there.
That'll come out of your wellbeing budget.
Yeah. Oh, take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.